All right, ladies and gentlemen, Ebro and Lauren Rosenberg, we are here. Happy New Year. And we start the new year, the gift that will not keep on giving, it will keep on taking. It's called congestion pricing.
Dennis. Hi, good morning, Ebro. Hey, Rosenberg. Hey, Laura. I represent a few things, but mainly subway and bus riders all across New York City. And I do that by way of my organizing home, Riders Alliance. So I'm a senior organizer there. I'm also the founder of Empowering Organizers. And I know you said it's the gift that, is going to take, but we're going to talk a little bit about how it gives
All right,
and what
so
that goes
so
to.
Dana, we've been talking about congestion pricing for a long time on this program.
Okay.
And we're very aware of the benefits potentially of congestion pricing.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Right.
Which obviously environmental, obviously lessening traffic, obviously air quality, all of those things, right? So
Great.
I don't know if anybody's particularly against those things. But I have been asking because remember, most of the people who listen to us in the morning that
Yes.
listen to us live, they're in their cars.
Of
So
course. I know your audience. I
so
get
we
it.
we actually asked just the other day for people to call in because I wanted to meet people who are pro congestion pricing. Most of the people I hear from, obviously Laura Rosenberg, Shani, and other people on the program, are against congestion pricing because they have to
Okay.
drive the hours they commute, 5 a.m., getting trains at, da da da, a series of issues. So we're welcoming you to the program and happy to have you on the program to represent people who are pro congestion pricing because you
hmm
are.
I am. I'm not only pro congestion pricing, I have fought for the program over the last 7 years, and I'll tell you why. And my reason is not rooted in obviously tolling. Any New Yorker, any toll, any tax is always going to be a hardship, especially in a post pandemic world, right? But I fought for this and will continue to fight for the program because there are transit riders all across New York City. And when we first passed this law, because congestion pricing is a law in 2019, there were a tune of 6 million a day. And so while your listeners, majority may be car drivers, and let me be clear, I own a vehicle as well. We all kind of have to check our privilege where it's at, right? And some folks may say, well, what privilege? I'm broke. I get it. Listen. However, there is a privilege to riding a car. Like there literally is, right? And so if you are driving into Manhattan
Mm.
5 days a week, because let's talk about the zone. The zone itself is 60th Street or below. And I hear from people in my own family and network. My grandmother, 97-year-old grandmother in Canarsie, Brooklyn, Jamaican lady, does not drive. Called me upset about congestion price. I said, Grandma, you don't leave Canarsie. Okay. So like a lot of folks I'm hearing from, I'm like, do you drive into Manhattan? If you drive into Manhattan 5 days a week, you can afford to park in Manhattan. You can afford the gas and the actual headache of traffic. Because let's be real, if you're a driver, you know what that traffic looks like. Then you probably have a little bit more to pay this fee than, let's say, our aunties and uncles all across the city who are dealing with, like you said, the bus and the train at 5 a.m.
Hmm.
And bus riders have it the worst. New York may have the largest bus network in the city, in the country, but we also have the slowest buses. You can get off of some of our buses and get to your destination faster
And
than the
that's
bus
because of
actually gets
traffic
there.
and congestion.
Yeah, traffic and congestion. And some folks go, well, how is that helping us in Queens, in the Bronx? Well, I'll tell you how. Some folks really need to go back to like where we started with this. This is a law. I don't know if you all remember or you were taking the subway or the bus back in 2017, but it was really coined in the media the summer of hell, right? And at that time, we had Governor Andrew Cuomo still in office, Mayor de Blasio, and when it comes to the subway, the governor is the most powerful person that there
Yeah,
is. A lot of
that's right.
times we look at the MTA, we look at the agency, but it's a state ran agency and they're responsible for it. So, like, personally, I myself at that time was not even a full time organizer. I was still volunteering. I got into this work in 2014. I've been doing this for close to 11 years when I was just making $10 an hour as a home health aide. I was working 50 hours a week riding the bus, oftentimes having to beg someone to swipe me on because I was putting $20 at a time on my Metro card. I found a flyer, found out about this organization, and was like, oh, somebody's organizing on transit. Like, let me go to a meeting. And then became like what we call a leader and started pushing our elected officials and decision makers. And at that time, I had no civic engagement. I was like, I don't know who runs the subway, who runs the bus, but somebody needs to fix it. I knew as a lifelong New Yorker, like, it sucks that the MTA had failed me many times, usually in affordability, accessibility, right? Like we only have 20%, 25%, excuse me, of our transit system is fully ADA compliant. So we need a lot more elevators. We need a better bus network. And I was hearing the same complaints from riders every single day. Like I hit the platforms. I literally will stand on platforms. I get on trains. I'm like, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. How you all doing? So when folks say, well, no one fought for this. Who wanted congestion price? A lot of people wanted it. I
So it's
know because I
interesting you say that, Dana, because one of the things I've been saying, I say all the time, but definitely last few days, is none of y'all complaining went to the meetings. They've been having
thank
meetings on
you.
this for years.
Meetings. I have meetings every single month, virtually, in person, in every single borough, all 5 boroughs. I have held a meeting, not just on congestion pricing. Let me be clear. Riders Alliance does not just push for congestion pricing. We push for fair affordability. One of the biggest campaigns I've ran to date is fair fares. That's something we hold Mayor Adams accountable for. We're asking him to expand the eligibility so that, riders, and to date we have over 350 riders across New York City who are getting 50% off of their Metro card, but we have a lot
350,000.
more.
350,000.
Excuse me, 350,000. You got that right. Who are getting half off their Metro card, and we still need more, especially when it comes to marginalized communities. When it comes to Black and brown folks,
So Dana,
we're the ones getting arrested.
all this new money's coming in.
Yes.
And I think this is where Rosenberg and many people who have cars and are privileged, this is where it starts to hit. Because people go, I'm paying more money. We don't trust the MTA, the executives at the MTA. We don't trust none of this money is actually going to improve the things that they say it's going to improve. There's always some bureaucracy. You mean to tell me it costs $100 million to put an elevator in? You mean to tell me like the train stations that are the most run down, that are in some of the most marginalized and low income communities, y'all really gonna improve those? Because we've been complaining about those for 100 years and nobody cares.
About that. I'm with you on that, Ebro. This is the biggest thing where I will need support from riders. The top line items that the MTA says they're going to fix, these are the spaces where I need everyone to continue to hold them accountable, right? So every single month, I'm asking riders to join me at hearings at the MTA headquarters. Come out to meetings. I'm busing riders up on February 4th and 14th up to Albany to make sure our legislators understand what's on the table right now. If they are going to receive the funding, then we have to make sure that the top line items are in the areas where folks need it the most. Like I personally would love to see at least 3 elevators at Broadway Junction. Like, why do we still not have that? East New York needs that. It's a major transit hub, right? I would love to see extensions to the Second Avenue line, which is one of the things they actually say they're going to do, right? So Harlem is in need of a Second Avenue line immediately. It stopped at 96th Street. That's not okay. Let's continue that, right? More elevated trains need escalators. When we talk about the Bronx, when we talk about the bus heaviness of the Bronx and Queens, right? So I want to see updated fleets in those areas. Extensions on certain lines are needed. And then the A&C line. I grew up in Crown Heights in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, right? So Ralph Avenue was my station. That's actually where I found the flyer. The C and the A need a major update to their signal system. That's one of the biggest things that congestion pricing is supposed to pay for. And when people go, well, I don't trust the MTA, I'm with you. I hear you. That's a real lived experience that I've had myself, right? It's like, well, why do we have fare increases? What's going on? And a lot of things I would love people to know is civically, there are 2 budgets that the MTA has. There's the operating budget, and that's every single year that money goes up to bat. That's a lot of what your fare goes to. That's a lot of what comes down from the state lines. There was no dedicated revenue until congestion pricing for these infrastructure fixes. Which I see you, Laura. I see you. Laura's like, well, what have they been doing?
I can't. I did a quick Google search, right? New York MTA scandals, right? And these are the headlines that are coming up. Okay. Uncovering fraud and waste in the MTA's $20 billion budget. 8 MTA workers got over $200K in overtime.
Yes.
Highest paid MTA employees sentenced to 8 months for da-da-da-da-da. MTA payrolls jumps 9% as overtimes goes through the roof. Like, I'm seeing headline after headline, and you expect us, the working people, to believe that they are going to use the money to fix the subways. I'm sorry, I have no trust.
Believe that. I'm with you. I had zero trust, and I still don't know where my trust lies. Systematic racism and oppression is real. So I'm going to tell you something that we fought for that's tied to congestion pricing, because that is exactly what I heard when I was going to Albany. When Andrew Cuomo, who was our former governor, proposed congestion pricing, which it wasn't a new thing at that time. We saw Mayor Bloomberg propose it, but I was like, okay, let's see if this can actually work, right? We're asking for funding. We're asking for these fixes. He says this is the way we can get it. We hit the floors of Albany. We talked to legislators, and they were like, we're not giving the MTA another dime. Like, we don't trust them. We don't know what's happening. So something we fought for along with congestion pricing is the lockbox bill. This is a bill that was passed in 2019 as well, and it requires 100% of the revenue to go for infrastructure fixes. So they cannot take it and put it on MTA workers' pensions. They cannot buy new uniforms. They can't even buy toilet paper with
So wait,
money.
hold on, Danna.
Yes.
Let's do it slow motion.
Okay.
100%
Yes.
of the money made from congestion pricing,
which they're estimating to be after this year like $1 billion a year, something like that.
$1 billion
right?
a year.
Okay.
Well, that was mostly at the $15 mark, but we're going to see with $9. We're hoping to still get there.
So we'll go to infrastructure improvements. We'll
That's
make
right.
that 100, and this is a law.
This is a law that was passed along with congestion pricing. They cannot put the revenue anywhere else.
People would have to vote to change that.
Yes.
That allocation of revenue would have to be voted to change.
Definitely, it would have.
So now let me take it a step further. Who from your activist network or from the right that represents the riders gets to approve or at least see how the money gets spent? Because then that's the next piece, right? Because then, now we collected all this money. Now we got to hire consultants. Oh, the consultants just happen to be my buddy from college, right? Who is going to tell us, and we're going to pay them, $300 million to tell us how we're going to spend this money.
Okay, I hear you. Those are real things. You're not going to get an argument from me.
Well, no. So I'm asking at this juncture, are people like yourself and your organization or other organizations able? Because when we talk about holding politicians or a corporation or anybody accountable, if you're not at that table when those funds are allocated and you're able to share that information with the public just goes, well, who's making the decision here? Because we can't hold the MTA accountable. Like, people was like, well, we're going to protest congestion price. I was like, so what you going to do, not drive to the city? That's what they want you to do. They want you to not drive.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Listen, holding folks accountable is definitely up my alley. Grassroots organizers on every level need to do this. And whether it's transit, immigration, housing, but that's another story, right? But yes, we are looking for riders to continue to join and stand with us to be in those rooms. Now, a lot of times agencies want to push you out. I will say over this last year, it's been a different working relationship. Hopefully it will continue to stay that way. But whether they do or not, it is absolutely my job to continue to call out any indiscrepancies around that.
So
issue,
your
right?
job is to show up to these meetings from here on out and make sure that the money being collected for congestion pricing is spent to improve infrastructure. That is your job.
I literally do that whether I'm getting paid or not. Like I said, I started as a volunteer for many, many years. I hope to stay in transit and just stick on this issue. But I would say with congestion pricing, there is a larger coalition that goes beyond Riders Alliance. Folks can continue to track it. Congestionpricingnow.org is the website where we put a lot of these stats. It will literally tell you borough by borough what is coming down the pipeline for your borough, what we're expecting. You can continue to get updates through us directly on
what's that, on an Instagram or an app? Where is this at?
No, the website.
It's a website, congestionpricingnow.org. You can literally go to Riders Alliance Instagram page. But there are a lot of other groups that we stand with. But that's the larger coalition. I would say there are about 40 plus of us in that group. And we cover any issue, really, from transportation to environmental justice, a vast array of policy and social justice, right? And so with congestion pricing and beyond congestion pricing, really anything that the MTA is doing, along with the mayor and the governor, if it's happening on bus and it's happening on subway, I am usually trying to pay attention to it and stay on top of it. And I'm not just doing that from an advocate point of view. Let me be clear. When it comes to organizing, my goal is to make sure that riders understand what their rights are, who's in charge, who are these decision makers, and how do you hold these folks accountable, right? So that's important. Sorry, Rosenberg.
No. Well, so speaking of the riders and advocating for them and their rights, the train does not feel particularly safe these days for a lot of people.
At
And
all.
I generally push back on it and think it's like the media overhyping it. But I've been in the train a bunch recently. It's not great. That is not an MTA issue solely. Obviously, they need help from NYPD and this very questionable at best administration. What makes you believe that these riders who are now, be protected, what makes you believe they're going to be safe being on the trains?
That's what I'm saying.
So let's talk about it. Safety is definitely a concern. It's something that comes up in almost every single meeting that I hold. I, especially as a Black woman and one who's worked in my 40 plus years, majority like overnight shifts, going from mainly like Brooklyn or Queens to Manhattan, I am not going to tell anyone what safety looks like for them, especially in a transit space, right? So there are a lot of things that I think need to be done from the MTA and our elected officials on to make sure that transit is safe. And yeah, we have seen a lot of stories lately of really unfortunate things that, still feel horrible in my spirit that I'm not going to mention. And I will say there are some things that we have pushed out in a rider safety plan for the last couple of years and have been trying to get folks to adopt. One thing I will say that you see that plays out in our subway system is a larger symptom, right, of a much bigger problem. So when we see unhoused neighbors in our subway system, that is just right off the bat a notion that we have a housing issue. We have a concern around our shelters and safety that folks are feeling there. So that's a bigger question of like, why are there so many unhoused people here? And then when we start talking about the resources or lack thereof around mental health, right? So like, who is responsible for that on the city and state level, and what does that look like in terms of our decision makers? Is there enough funding going into those programs? Are we reaching people where they are? How are we getting these folks to a different place where they can get help and what they need? And then beyond that, because everyone that has a safety issue in the subway doesn't always have a mental health concern. Sometimes it's just two riders popping off. We're going to be real. Sometimes it's someone
Or perverts.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. I've seen a lot of that overnight as well, right? I used to say the 3 R's: robbers, rats, and rapists were the things I was trying to like stay away from on the subway. That happens. And I will tell you what I would love to see. And again, safety for some folks look like more police in the subway system. I won't say that translates to safety for me. For me, when I'm on a platform, what I want is frequency, and I want a train to come on time. I want some witnesses, even though as New Yorkers, we love to say, oh, we minding our business. Having people be able to see something sometimes helps, sometimes it doesn't, right? I want to make sure that there are more lighting and bus shelters when I'm standing at a dark bus stop, right? Like, is this bus actually coming? And then when we do talk about police, because to a lot of people, not some people, that translates, and nothing against police individually, they do their job. But what I don't want to see is 7, 8 police officers at my turnstile texting on their phone. Like, if you're actually going to get on the bus or get on the train, then do that. Because a lot of times that's where the crime is happening. It's not even just on, at the turnstile, it's on the platform. It's on the actual train. So we're going to allocate.
They're just trying to stop people from hopping the turnstile. They're not trying to keep nobody safe.
Crimes of poverty. Like, you're arresting me for not having, close to $3. Where are we at? $2.90 now.
Yeah,
and
$2.90.
I don't have it. Then I surely don't have $100 for a fine. Right. And I don't want to go on to where I'm getting arrested and I have an official record. Not that we want anyone to hop the turnstile, but we have to look into those numbers too. Is that targeted? Is that only happening in certain neighborhoods?
Well, let's focus this, because it sounds like your initiative and the thing you've been pushing for in congestion pricing is and we talked about this also the other day, where people were like, well, if you're forcing everybody on the mass transit, then what are you going to do about the mental health crisis we're having in the city and the housing issues we're having? And I was basically like, that's a tough jump, right? Like, you can't just say, hey, we want to fix infrastructure, but then all of a sudden also get into the other things, right? It's kind of like you got to do something. You got to get off your hands. And if the thing you can control is getting infrastructure fixed, then hopefully the other things will catch up, right? But it sounds like your main focus and your organization's main focus was getting money allocated to improve the experience of people who aren't privileged enough to have cars and use the mass transit system to survive.
My main focus is to make sure that the subway and the buses are frequent, they run on time, they're reliable. I want to make sure that we have more access and they're accessible, whether that's affordability, and maybe that's an elevator, right? For folks who have mobility concerns, that's the thing that we're looking to do. We constantly went to the legislators. We have gone to the MTA several times. What we always heard was, for these projects that you're asking for, there isn't enough money. And so, again, it's not our job as advocates to decide what the funding source was going to be to fix these things. It is just our job to continuously call out the problem and hold them accountable. So this idea came from the legislators.
So, Danna, this is what I propose, because this is our first, I'm assuming our first of many conversations.
I hope so.
Right? Because you now are the spokesperson for our audience on what the hell is going on in these trains.
Okay.
And so since you're on this program at the top of 2025 and everybody's pissed about congestion pricing, you're like, wait, hey, this money's specifically 100% going to be allocated and used to improve.
So 80% to subways and buses, 10% to Metro North, 10% to Long Island Railroad.
So at some point after this convo, please deliver us some sort of calendar so we can have some expectations on how this actually rolls out, right? So if congestion pricing started yesterday or a couple days ago, whatever it was, and I'm assuming they won't really start looking at the books of what they've collected for 3 to 4 months. Is it a quarterly review of collections? Is it what is it?
That's important. We're not sure where they're going to be. I think we're going to start having the bigger conversations somewhere around April, May. We need to, because that's really when our budget gets decided. So this is January. And so again, just for the civic background here, we really need to start paying attention to our governor. Governor Hochul is probably going to do her state of the state any day now, and our mayor. Mayor Adams is going to do the state of the city. And folks should really be paying attention to these two things. If you don't do anything else with your legislators this year, watch those programs, because those are your top line items when a legislator will announce what is important. Even if it's your local senator, assembly member, they're going to usually do a state of the district. Pay attention to that report, because if you don't see your most pressing issue, whether it is housing, your child's school, your immigration case, transportation, whatever is happening in your household or your immediate circle, if you don't hear them mention what they plan to do or even mention that item, that's when you need to start picking up the phone and calling folks or emailing. Either it's an organization like myself that's already working on the issue and you start finding out on the ground what's happening, or you call them yourself. You literally get on the phone or you send an email, say, hey, this is my household. This is my address. I'm your constituent. This is what's happening for me. What do you plan to do about it? We need to start paying attention to our legislators, right? They're getting paid a hefty dollar to pass budgets and laws every single year. So from April to July, really, to the end of June, that is when all of your budgets are coming down.
Well, no, Danna, we got you, but we got you now. So what you gonna do is you're gonna reach out to us and you're gonna say, hey, we need to pay attention to something. Everybody, let's mobilize. Because if you're telling, because we're trusting you now.
Please do.
You got a new job.
You got this. We're trusting you because we don't trust the MTA. So you at the meetings, which means that Danna's gonna be like, listen, we had a meeting, and this is what they're talking about. The future plans are, and so now everybody get to watch this thing roll out.
That's exactly what I need. Thank you for that. I need folks to pay attention to that, and then I need them to join me, right? Because
you hit us, and we'll be like, Danna needs you to get her back. So everybody that's rocking with Danna and want the trains to get better, and you on the trains all the time, meet Danna at this location. Let's get active. We got you.
Yeah. Or if you're having issues with congestion pricing, look, your audience, like you said, is majority car drivers, right? What's happening? Are you having issues? Did you get your Easy Pass yet? Did did anything happen? What's going on? Are you seeing maybe less congestion on your route? Better traffic?
Now, Dan, if you really want to make some friends, out here, what you'll really give us is when you go to the meetings and they start saying things like, well, we're having problems collecting because we're having this malfunction. You'll let us know where the malfunctions are so we can skirt around some of these fees once in a while. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know about all that, but come out. Come out to the meetings. We need everybody to pay their fees. But really, let's talk about fees. Can I just quickly plug discounts? Because I think people are not paying attention to those. for your audience, right? So there are several discounts available. So if you are a low income driver, and we're counting low income is really hard for me these days to figure out what that looks like in New York City, but they're counting that as 50,000 or less.
Which is BS. It really need to be like 80. It really need to be like 80, 85.
I'm with you on that. That's the issue we having with fair fares, right? They want you to make like less than 17,000. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I know people that make 45, 50 need 50% off their Metro card, but that's another story. Mayor Adams, hopefully you hear me. But back to this. The discounts right now, 50,000. If you are a low income driver, you need to call, or you can go to the MTA's website itself, I believe, but call Easy Pass. You can sign up for the discount and you will get a discounted rate at 50% off, right? If you live within the congestion zone and you are a low income rider, again, at that 50,000 mark, but you live somewhere within 60th Street or below in Manhattan, you can sign up for a tax credit. So you get a low income tax credit at the end of the year when you file your taxes. If you have a qualifying disability, there is an exemption to the program, whether you're an individual or an organization. So that can be accessoride, that can be you with a school, you work for, a private company that picks up medical patients or clients. There are ways that folks can get exemptions and should do that. So hopefully people are tapping into these things and getting a little bit of a credit. Plus, we know overnight is $2.25. So I'm not going to tell nobody else what's expensive for their pocket, but take advantage of that overnight fee if you don't necessarily have to go into the city during peak hours. That's what I will say to folks.
Danna Dennis, the first of many conversations. She is now the official representative of collecting money and congestion pricing on this program. And she will check in periodically and let us know what the plans are for the MTA to improve your train and bus experience, because 100% of congestion pricing collections is allocated to that. Correct?
That's right. That's correct. It is. And we're going to make sure that not only are they receiving the money, but they're spending it wisely and in the right place. And let's uplift the marginalized communities first. Let's make sure we see, highlighted issues happening in the Bronx. That's what we need.
And then she's also going to give us the names of people once they start trying to act funny with the money, so we can put them on blast early, because she's going to be at those meetings when they trying to hire their little buddies or consulting little buddies to blow off $300 million.
I hope that's not happening. And if it is, we're going to call it out every time. That's outrageous. But yeah, we're not going to pretend that those are not real experiences that people have. Like I said, I'm in my 40s. I've been riding MTA a long time, even recent years. I've recently moved to Jersey. I still have to commute in and get on the train, take the PATH train, take the subway. It sucks. That happens. And that's the thing that we're trying to improve. It's not okay. We should not pay more for less. If we are all going to pay more, if we're going to have increases to our fare, then we need to make sure that we're
I don't mind. Listen, because I got it, I don't mind paying it for something that's really going to be useful. Okay. I think most of the people who got it and are pissed that they got to pay it don't believe it's going to be useful.
That's the main thing. So if we turn out to be wrong, I think people will feel. We would
love. By the way, I think most people who got it and can afford it would love to be wrong.
I'm with you on that. I would love for it to actually be the program that is going to be transformative. I know change is hard, it's scary, but we've seen it work in other places. We've seen it in London. We've seen it in Singapore, Sweden. We are the first in North America to do it.
That ain't New York City. Them people different.
Listen, I'm with you on that. It's a different city. I don't know.
Their cultures are a little bit different. London's your closest bet, but even they, I don't even know if they're as corrupt as we are.
I haven't been to Singapore, but I've been to Sweden. It's a great country. But I listen.
Well, exactly. That's what Ebro suggested.
I get you. Some of the best transit experiences I've had have been abroad. We need to do better. Right. We have a great transit system. We actually do. It is the lifeblood of our city. It's just not doing what it's supposed to do right now, and it shouldn't just fall on riders. If riders or drivers,
different conversation for a different day. Danna, on us not living up to our potential in many ways around this country. We have the potential to do a lot of things better than we actually are. We always fall short, it seems, historically speaking. But Danna, we'll have you back.
Thank you,
Dan. Look forward to more convo. And by the way, it don't always got to be a sit down. You could just jump on the phone live in the morning right? Because
that would be great. I'll
you
take
just
some
call
calls
in.
next time.
Yeah,
I know
just-
they ready to cuss me out. Listen, folks, I'm just going to stand in what I stand in. I'm fighting for riders. I don't work for MTA. I hope they do their thing. Stand with me and holding them accountable as well.
Danna
All
Dennis,
right.
thank you for your time.
Thanks, Danna.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye-bye.